Hey Super Soldiers, what's up? Good morning. It is 8:41 a.m. in Pai, Thailand. I hope you're having a good day or a good night wherever you're at. So I just got out of a cold shower, like a 40-minute cold shower. My mechanism or protocol is I get in and I just take a warm shower because if I think I'm just gonna go in cold, I'm just not gonna go in, and then eventually I just do an all warm shower. So to trick my body, it's like I go in for a warm shower. Once I'm used to the water, I'm warmed up a bit because it's cold at night here. Then I gradually transition into like cold water, and I go as cold as it can get. And I've done that for 2 days, and I did a fat loss intensive yesterday, and so today I'm doing a video, a 1 day fat loss intensive that will adapt your physiology to burn more fat. And yesterday I did one, and today I'm doing a second one. And as you know, or you might not know, is my philosophy toward physiological adaptation is giving your body like 1 day intensive one direction sets of stimulus, with like yin yang philosophy. So if you're adapting for muscle growth, you should maybe have one or for the whole day. So you have 2 or 3 40-minute workouts where you're lifting heavy weight. You should have some type of yoga practice or some type of running endurance practice or some type of practice that is going to have somewhat the opposite or somewhat like a dissimilar physiological impact, so your body learns to adapt. Not like it'll still there's all sorts of benefits to that. So that's my philosophy of how to do things. So today we're going to do introduction. Let me start with introducing the effectiveness of synergist stacks of stimulus to your physiology. So basically, what that means is your your physiology is constantly getting stimulus from the environment. You are an organism. Your body is an organism, and if your eyes are open, there's stimulus coming in. If you're listening to this, there's stimulus happening to your physiology, right? There's constantly stimulus happening to your physiology, and you, as a conscious or an intelligent animal, as an intelligent beast, want to and who fortunately lives in a time where like we've generated bodies of information about on our own biology and physiology and evolutionary process to become what we are. You can actually give your own self, you can give your own organism intelligent stacks of stimulus that will adapt it in particular ways, right? So that is kind of like my philosophy on how to attain optimal evolutionary fitness. That's an aspect of it. So let's get into the protocol. Let's start describing the day-long intensive and the multiple protocols that you want to enact in a similar day, and what is the impact of each one individually, and what's the impact of doing them in a particular sequence throughout the day. Um, so basically, the first thing I did, I just got up this morning and yesterday and took a cold shower. Now, what does a cold shower do? What is the impact of the cold shower on your physiology? It increases mitochondrial count, function, and size. So per cell in your body, you will have more mitochondria, they will be bigger, and they will increase in size. Now, the thing is with cold showers, there is a limitation to where it's not full body immersion, and so you're not in cold water, your entire body immersed for like a long period of time, such that even your core of your body needs to adapt to like warm up. That doesn't really happen. It doesn't need to up ramp. It's like core. Your body doesn't need to up ramp its core metabolism, just mostly like limbs and surface. And the other thing with a shower, unless you have one of those like head top showers that just floods water downwards, your whole body is not going to be exposed to water continuously. It's going to be a different part of your body exposed to water multiple times, frequently, until it's fully adapted. And so my way of doing that is like I make sure that when the cold shower, I keep using the same temperature of water until like I can go back to the same spot and hold it there multiple times. And my body, even though it may like feel cold, it doesn't like there isn't like a reaction to it. Like I can easily bear it, and then I'll move on to colder water. So it's good for, so what it makes it good for is over time what happens is your body, if you keep taking cold showers, what's happening is it's adapting your body so that there's the ratio of white fat cells to brown fat cells is going down, or you can say the ratio of brown fat cells to white fat cells is going up. And what that means is brown fat cells or brown fat in your body is fat that has a high mitochondrial count, and so it can easily be catabolized, it can easily be metabolized, and be used for different physiological functions that your body might require if you're in a fasted state and need energy that's not coming from food that you already have. Because think of this as a bank. But then you have white fat cells or white fat, and that can't be used until it's converted to brown fat cells, right? So you have white fat in your body that cannot be possibly used until it's converted to brown fat. And so what cold showering does, or cold immersion or cold exposure in general does, it adapts more of your fat to become brown fat. And so it's not like, so that's one aspect of it. So long term, you, by taking cold showers or cold immersion, or adapting your fat to be more usable, and therefore you develop more fat fluidity. What that means is like you can put on fat more easily and you can like take off fat more easily. Both of those things happen, and you have more like of a dynamic body where you know if you have one off day you'll gain some weight and it'll be visible to you, especially if you're super skinny. I'm kind of big, and I still am like, I can notice 1 or 2 days, like within one day, through doing the fat loss immersion, I can notice my body looking different because I've lost fat. Or like if I have a bad day, like 1 or 2 bad days, like I gain fat and I can notice it, right? It's very visible to me. So increases mitochondrial count, increases the ratio of brown fat to white fat, increases access to fat as the primary energy source in a fasted state. So some of you may know this if you're like into weightlifting or bodybuilding, that when you're cutting or trying to lose fat, what happens is you lose muscle at the same time a lot of the time. But what this does is taking cold shower or cold immersion over time, what it's doing is because it's adapting more of your fat to be brown fat. And if you are a fairly healthy person, you like to work out, you like to eat well, and you still have a lot of weight, but like you're okay with it because you know you're doing the right things. It's just like your body's, it's genetic to some degree, but one of the things that you can, like a epigenetic move you can do, is that when you expose yourself to cold, this conversion to brown fat that happens, what that does is your body, when it's in a fasted state, has two ways of making more energy for itself. One is breaking down muscle and protein, getting protein from your muscle, and one is breaking down fat and getting energy from your fat cells. This is like the actual mechanism. Your body isn't really supposed to break down muscle, it's supposed to break down fat first, and when you don't have fat, then it's supposed to catabolize the muscles, right? But what this does is it starts to make the fat that you've stored more accessible again, the way it's supposed to be, and you start to preferentially utilize fat over protein in fasted states, right? So that is one thing that happens that's super useful. Also, what happens to cold shower and water, like cold immersion, is that cold immersion is that you begin to store more energy, and thus you store more energy in your muscles. So each muscle cell and then the muscle tissue itself has a lot more energy stored in it. So when you consume calories, your body is adapted to store that in your muscle cells and not store it as much in your fat cells, because it knows that it's going to be needed, right? And actually, in cold showers, what happens is you train your body to store more energy in throughout like your surface, right? So within your skin, within your face, within your forehead, like wherever the cold is more, like wherever there's more cold. So your core is going to stay warm, and your outward is going to get cold when you take cold showers. And so your body, if you take cold showers over time, like you make it a habit, what's going to happen is your body is going to get adapted to store fat in more surfacey areas. So like on my thighs, I don't have any fat, but it's like pure muscle, but it gets exposed to a lot of cold. So my muscles there are going to have more energy stored. But my stomach, when I expose it to cold, is also going to then be like my surfacey stomach is going to be storing more fat. But the thing about that is it's also training it to convert that fat to brown fat. So my body's getting trained to store more fat in the surfacey areas, which is good for like younger appearance, but then like more deep down in its core, right? It's not adapting, and that's what cold immersion is better for. But on the surface, when it gets adapted to do that, it's also at the very same time training to make it brown fat versus white fat, and so it's brown fat that can be used. That's why it's being stored there, so it can be used. Okay. So it decreases the tendency of your body to catabolize muscle. So if you're like a weightlifter or a bodybuilder, then you should definitely do this. It will over time make sure that you're not catabolizing muscle under any circumstances, as long as you have a little bit of fat to use. Increases fat fluidity, so we already talked about that. Short term, it immediately increases your metabolic rate to warm up the parts you're exposing to cold. So early in the morning, if you take a cold shower with a cup of coffee, what's going to happen is the caffeine is already making your body's metabolism go up and potentiating it to go up a lot more and a lot faster than it would normally. And then if you go in and take a 35, 40-minute cold shower, then it will have that synergistic effect of ramping everything up, you know? Ramping everything up, but okay, so here's one of the downsides of cold showering. See, cold showering for me, it takes some time. So I go in 5 to 10 minutes of warm shower, and then like ramping up the cold for another 20-25 minutes. So it's like a 35-minute process for me, and right now it's worth it because I see the adaptations that are happening from it. But also, like, every day I'm like, I've only done it twice so far. Like, I mean, I've done it in the past, but like in a row, and it's already like time consuming. Like, I don't want to spend that much time in the shower. Of course, like, it helps me think about stuff that I'm going to talk about and things like that, but it's still not something I want to do. And it's not as effective as this like full-on cold immersion. So I think so one of the trade-offs is like it might just be more valuable. It might just be more valuable to do 30 to 35 minutes on a like do cold immersion like in a river or like in a swimming pool or whatever, once or twice a week, rather than trying to do cold showers every day. Or there might be some maximal of just doing cold showers until you get to a certain point, and then just doing them every once in a while, and then doing like the full-on cold immersions in the ice bath or like a river or whatever, as often as you can. So there are trade-offs to doing cold showers, and the other thing is the cold shower, it only adapts to your surface, whereas cold immersion adapts like your entire body to warm itself up, and all the effects we were talking about happen in your entire body rather than just your surface. Cool. The second thing, I follow that up with a certain type of meditation I do. It's a recitation-based meditation, and there's a certain rhythm of the sound, and I won't talk about the specifics of it, but it has a very strong, because I've done it my whole life, it has a very strong like physiological effect of like really calming me down, really making me feel good, and making me in tune with like a very subtle level of experience. That and just physiologically speaking, it totally lowers cortisol. And that's one thing you want to maximize for, is minimizing cortisol. You want to minimize cortisol as much as possible. So incorporating 10 to 15 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of meditation on any day, whether you're maximizing for hypertrophy or maximizing for fat loss or whatever you're maximizing for, minimizing cortisol on any day is a good idea. So that's one of the things you get out of massage too. So first wake up in the cold shower, then do a meditation. That's the second, but it's not like lowering cortisol has all types of synergistic effects, and so but particularly for fat loss, it makes more fat loss possible because testosterone and HGH are both inversely correlated with cortisol. So if you lower cortisol, you're going to increase the activity and the amount of testosterone and HGH that you have in your blood. So therefore, doing something like a meditation practice or whatever, any practice that lowers cortisol is a good idea in terms of increasing testosterone and HGH impact and amount in the blood. Third, it's 9 o'clock now. At 9:30, there's a yoga class that I'm going to end up doing in a fasted state. So it's a 90-minute yoga practice. I think today is Vinyasa or Hatha. So they're both. So let me talk about both. Vinyasa in particular is really good for the same type of effect that we're talking about in cold immersion or cold showering, because what it does is if you do it on a fasted state, right? If you're doing Vinyasa on a fasted state, what ends up happening is that your body is required, you're doing all these movements using muscles of your body that you aren't evolved to move in that particular way. So a human being is evolved to walk upright, right? So when you're doing downward dog, like for a sustained amount of time, or like plank there's no evolutionary purpose or reason for like an animal or our animal ancestor to have held that movement, held that position stable for that amount of time. In fact, like evolutionarily speaking, as an animal, it probably just doing downward dog in the middle of the forest would have gotten you killed, right? So there's no physiological like adaptation for it. And so what happens is you're giving your body a stimulus that your body doesn't have like evolutionary reason to be adapted to, and what that does, it increases cellular metabolism and increases cellular mitochondrial function, size, all that, because you need to now put out energy in a radiating type of way. So imagine holding plank for like 20 breaths, and when you hold those breaths, what's that doing? It's providing the position is providing this stimulus that is novel, and your body has to adapt to. And has to adapt to like producing energy and building muscle fiber that can stabilize you in that position. And then by doing deep breaths, you're actually providing energy and oxygen to those parts of your body which are needing it in those moments, right? And therefore you have to hold positions for long times in hatha yoga, because or in Ashtanga, like at a medium, Ashtanga is like medium, Hatha is like longer, and because if you're holding a pose and you just do one or two quick breaths, the physiological impact of you holding that pose and taking deep breaths, such that while that physiological adaptation or that physiological stimulus is happening and the requirement of that adaptation is happening, throughout that time you're providing oxygenated blood to that area of your body. Right, so that's what's happening when you're doing hatha yoga. But with the vinyasa, you're just doing movements, and you're doing movements that your body isn't really adapted or evolved to do, and you're using muscles in ways that they haven't really been evolved to be used, but not in a way that they can't be used, and therefore the physiological adaptation is very, very strong, and it's different from hypertrophic muscle building in that it's like more about building stabilizing muscle fiber, and then on a cellular level increasing the capacity for the cell to store energy and to produce energy. So your muscle fibers begin to store a lot more energy, and then they begin to be capable of, once that energy is used up, of producing a lot more energy before like becoming fatigued, right? So it's a different type of thing. It's a different type of adaptation. So it does the same type of thing as a cold shower would do. And And this is especially true if you do it in a fasted state. Alternatively, you can do yoga with cortisol. I mean, you can take coconut oil and coffee. I've done that's a good one. Or you can do papaya and coconut oil, just like a slight amount of sugar from the papaya, but getting all the benefit due to digestive power of the papaya. You get all the benefit of the coconut oil, and then you can burn off the papaya fairly quickly, and then it's like doing it in a fasted state anyways, like after like the first 10 minutes. Okay. Second, cold water immersion. So the thing I'm doing after yoga class today is I'm driving up to the river up north in Pi. There's this kind of secret spot that I like going to, and I immerse myself in water there. And once my body's fully adapted and I feel totally comfortable in the water for a while, I'll get out and I get comfortable to the sun again. And then I'll go back in and I'll do that a couple times. And what that does, and I'm not going to go too deep here because we already talked about it at the beginning, it's your whole body from surface to core. It's being forced to adapt its thermogenesis, and therefore it's all adapting. It's burning fat, and therefore adapting to burning fat in order to keep your temperature higher. And I think this is one of the, like, thermogenic response or thermogenic training is one of the best ways to teach your body how to use fat and adapt it to start losing fat. And so I'm going to be doing that. And today, just to mention, it's Monday, and so I have not quite a habit, but often, and I'm trying to build a habit, I fast on Mondays because it's an Islamic practice. It's a Mohammedan practice to fast on Mondays and Thursdays, and so I'm doing that today, which is synergistic because I had like an optimized fat loss yesterday, and here I'm not going to talk about the spirituality of it. I'm just talking about the physiological effects. So the physiological effects of it already had kind of like a suboptimal in terms of nutrition, optimal but not like all the way optimal yesterday. So I already had like a fat loss intensive, and now I'm like amping it up where I'm giving myself more like stimulus, and I'm in a totally perfectly fasted state of no food. So in that state, I'm going to go do the water immersion right after yoga class, and then after the water immersion, I don't know at this point how tired I'll be, but like the optimal response is then, I mean, the optimal thing after that would be I would come back home and there's this white Buddha statue like at a temple, and so there's like an uphill climb to these set of stairs, and then you go up the stairs, and then there's a road, and then you cross the road, and then there's another set of stairs, and you get up to the temple, and there's a huge set of stairs up to the white Buddha like at the back area of the temple. And so doing that climb, that whole climb, like not running, but just like after I'm already tired, cold immersion, everything, like that physiological activity, will be using fat. So today's about like endurance. It's like about doing all of this over time, like constantly just moving forward, doing all these protocols continuously, one after another, and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning now. It'll probably be like 3 p.m. by the time I'm doing this. So basically this uphill hike is endurance training, right? It's meant to fatigue me over time. It's not like a high intensity thing. Okay, once I go up to the White Buddha, it's my favorite meditation spot, so I'll do a second round of meditation, which is good for your neurology, but this isn't a video about that, so I'm not talking about those benefits of meditation. But the only thing I want to talk about here is that the meditation lowers your cortisol, and so it increases the activity and the amount of HGH and testosterone in your blood and other supporting hormones in your blood that, go with HGH and testosterone, and so that you're sculpting your body. Like every time you lower your cortisol in a fasted state and allow HGH and testosterone to function fully in your bloodstream, you're shaping your body on a very subtle level. You're literally sculpting your body by letting testosterone and HGH run wild without any cortisol. And if you develop a meditation practice, you can kind of know that your cortisol is dropping. Like your body will feel different, like when that's happening. And so using meditation to drop cortisol is a cool thing to do. Last thing of the day, at this point I'll probably be exhausted. I think I'm gonna do a second yoga class at 5:30 if I have it in me. Usually if I keep going, like if I've been active throughout the day, like from the first yoga class onwards and done everything, then I have the energy to do the second yoga class. But if I fall off somewhere in the middle of the day, then I just don't have enough energy or motivation to do the second yoga class. So I'm gonna go, there's the idealistic objective of doing the second yoga class. Now, my fast ends around 5:30, 6 o'clock, so I'll probably take a little bit of food with me to class and have a bite during the class. And at that point, I think I'm going to need some sugar intake. Like my body will be exhausted, like it won't be able to metabolize fat anymore. And that's the point. Like the way you exhaust your muscle is the same way you want to exhaust your physiological capacity to burn fat for energy. Like increasingly, you want to increase that bar, like how much fat can your physiology burn before it gets exhausted and needs a break. And so by this yoga class, like either by the beginning or by the end, because I'm a totally fasted state, even from water, I'm going to need something in order to complete the class. So I'll take a little something with me, and it'll give me enough sugar or whatever to give me a boost, but it won't be so much as to like, by the end of the class, I'll be using fat again a little bit after giving my physiology a break. And then after class, I'm going to go eat because I'm going to be hungry as heck, but I'm going to try to only have like low fat, definitely low calorie, because if you're not fasting, you should probably fast on the days where you do this type of intensive. But if you're not fasting, you definitely need to have a low calorie day, otherwise there's no point. It has to be very low calorie. And that's the thing, on muscle building days you do high calorie, but on these type of days you do low calorie. So you're doing low calorie, but then macronutrients wise, you're also doing low fat, low carbohydrates, like low to zero carbs. Really, like you should be low calorie, and none of those calories should come from carbs on this type of day, on like a fat loss intensive day. And then protein, the thing with protein is that it can stimulate insulin. So if you have too much protein, it will stimulate insulin, an insulin response, which is the opposite of what we want on these type of days. We want low cortisol, high HGH, high testosterone, and so we don't want high insulin on these days because insulin will keep the fat on you. So what'll happen is if you generate an insulin response, you'll just won't be your body will keep storing the fat, and you will feel really lethargic because you're not taking in calories, and your body won't burn the fat or the muscle. And so you just won't end up doing anything, is what's going to happen. And so you don't want to have too much protein because it'll stimulate that insulin response. And also having too much protein on days when you don't have too much carbs is bad for your kidneys. And it's just bad systemically. You don't want to just be consuming pure protein all the time, or at all, really. It's not a good thing to do. And so you also have to go low protein up to medium protein. Now, it's really hard to find medium protein, low fat, low carb meals, right? Like figuring that out is kind of hard to do. And so what's going to end up happening is you're probably going to have a salad and like a chicken wrap or something, right? Like a salad and a chicken wrap. And remember, the key thing is low calorie on these days, so you're going to keep low calorie. Now, you can go high nutrition on these days. It's probably good to do, but the thing with high nutrition is that usually for high nutrition, you need high fat for full absorption. And so I try to go high hydration on these days. I'll go high nutrition if I can, if I find like a wheatgrass shot or a carrot juice or like a beetroot juice or something like that, because carrot juice and beetroot juice, then there's also sugar content to that, right? But it's not that high. So I'll go like salad. I'll do salad, and then I'll try to like hydrate is what I'll do on these days. And because I'm only doing it for a day at a time, like it's doable. I'm not like, oh, I have to do this forever, so like why not cheat today and then tomorrow? No, I'm like, no, I'm doing this today. This is the thing I'm doing today. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow. This is the thing I'm doing today. And just overall in like philosophy of like fitness and stuff too, I think it's day to day. Like you learn to be able to predict, like, oh, I did legs day tomorrow, so tomorrow like I'll probably want to do chest day. Like you learn to predict your own physiological, like thing. But also, if the next day you don't want to do chest day, you feel more like a fat loss day because you look at your body, you had a lot of food yesterday, and you can see that some of it went into like building your muscle, but you also like gained some fat from it. Like, and you like all of a sudden really want to do a fat loss day, then do a fat loss day. Who cares, right? And remember that fat loss days are not just about losing fat on that day, even though they are, because the by losing fat on that day is how you adapt your physiology to start burning more fat. But the goal is to adapt your physiology optimally to burn more fat, right? That's kind of like the goal, and to be adapted to burn fat, conserve muscle. Okay. So the last activity of the day is massage, and so like at this point, like after having a meal is probably not the optimal time to go get a massage. But the thing is, I'm gonna have a low calorie meal, so it's gonna be a small meal, like I said, like a salad and like a chicken wrap and maybe like a papaya, like a packet of small papaya. So or some like some fresh cut up papaya, like a little bit of it to like help digest. So it's going to be a low meal, and because I'm accustomed to larger meals, like having a massage after like a small meal isn't a big deal. But what the massage is going to do is going to again lower cortisol right before I go to sleep, because that's going to be the last thing I do today. It's going to lower cortisol right before I go to sleep, and lowering cortisol right before I go to sleep means what? Immense HGH boost, immense testosterone boost, and the thing is, people are like, oh, I always eat before I go to sleep, and so my HGH is probably fine. No, but the thing is, you're taking off the weight. So like, if for one day you optimize where you have low cortisol and no sugar in your blood when you go to sleep, then on that day your HGH is going to go through the roof while you're sleeping. And you'll feel it the next day. You'll feel how different you feel, and it's like a synergistic effect. It's like a positive addiction that can develop. So if just do it one day. Just get a massage one night. Don't eat after. Have no sugar in your bloodstream, and then maybe take a cold shower. So that's the second thing. That might be the last thing. I might take a second cold shower. It depends on how much fat I've burned during the day. Like if it looks like I get motivated by like I see myself, I'm like, dang, yes, I'm intelligent, this is working, I was right about all this. And then like I look at myself and I've like lost some fat, then it makes me motivated to take the next step, and then like do this next thing. And the thing about cold showers, it'll also just add to the effect that a massage right before lower cortisol, all that would have had on you, right? Anyways, so that's my day today. That is what I'm planning to do. I want to start documenting these again like I was. I did this likes video that's up on here on this channel. But I have some camera issues that I'm dealing with right now, so I'm doing these type of videos for a while. And yeah, so if you want the super soldier to come to life, you want the intelligent beast to start producing videos with all types of crazy stuff like stem cells and doing like metabolic stuff and like really like optimizing and like measuring and talking to doctors and tracking all these biometrics for each one of these intensives and biometrics and demonstrating like optimal health. This isn't just philosophy, but measurably demonstrating like the impact of doing this type of stuff on your physiology, on your body, on your organism over time. If you want that type of content, please subscribe, please hit notify, please comment on my stuff, give me feedback, negative, positive, I'm open to all of it. Please consider donating. My email is mcatmindset@gmail.com. That's my PayPal actually, MCAT mindset@gmail.com, as in the medical college acceptance says. Again, mcatmindset@gmail.com. Send $1, send $10, send $100, send $1,000, send whatever you can afford. I think one of the reasons I want to do this is I'm really passionate about like future medicine or future forms of healthcare and self-healthcare, and I think there's a lot more possible than like modern medicine would have us believe, and I want to be on the cutting edge of that and be producing content that allows people to do that for themselves, and to live fuller, longer, more successful lives on a biological level. Anyways, talk soon. This is Super Soldier Sayed Omar Ali signing out. Have a good day.